Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I'm going to be reviewing all the new weapons from the Apocalypse DLC in Battlefield 1, how they stack up against the existing weapons, if there's any point in using them, which ones are the best and which ones are the worst. We'll even be going over the new anti-air AT Rocket Gun. Now, why don't we start off with my personal favorite new weapon from this DLC, which is the Rsc Mark III bolt-action sniper rifle. This is a Canadian rifle that was used during the war, and although in real life it had many reliability issues, in trench warfare it was still a popular weapon because of its exceptional accuracy. Now in Battlefield, this weapon is basically a SMLE reproduction. It's got almost identical stats to the SMLE, except that it can shoot faster. So it has the same sweet spot from the SMLE, starting at 40 meters away, which is a very effective, aggressive sweet spot, ideal for many different maps on Battlefield, making it a very adaptable sniper rifle. It comes with the marksman scope, which is, I believe, a 4x scope. It doesn't have a scope glint, which is nice. And it has a fairly fast reload as well. Now, the main difference between this and the SMLE is that the SMLE has 10 rounds instead of the Rsc's 5 rounds, but it shoots at 52 rounds per minute, where the Rsc can shoot at 62 rounds per minute. This means that the Rsc Mark III essentially dethrones the SMLE marksman as one of my favorite sniper rifles in Battlefield 1. This could become my new go-to sniper rifle. Now, the downside, of course, is that you don't have those 10 rounds, which means you're going to have to reload this weapon a little bit more frequently, but that's not a huge downside. And for the added rate of fire bonus, which can make a fairly big difference in aggressive play, this is definitely going to be a top contender for one of the best sniper rifles in all of Battlefield 1. Now let's talk about the second sniper rifle you unlock with the Apocalypse DLC. This is the M1917 Enfield Infantry. This is basically the American Lee Enfield rifle. It does not offer a variant with a scope, which is very weird considering the rifle's sweet spot. You would think it would be more similar to the SMLE sweet spot, since it's basically an American version of the same rifle, but in fact it actually has a sweet spot closer to the, well, in fact identical to the 1903, an extremely long distance sweet spot, and yet we're using an iron sight rifle. So a rifle intended for extreme long ranges that only offers an iron sight. If you're that kind of player, then go for it. Otherwise, this is going to be a frustrating rifle to use. Now, on paper, this rifle does actually offer some significant benefits over the 1903. It shoots at 60 rounds per minute instead of the 1903's 53 rounds per minute, and it also has 6 rounds per magazine instead of 5. So it has some straight upgrades over the 1903, just no optic for long-range shooting. So if you want to give yourself a challenge at extreme distances, then this could be a fun weapon to try out. The iron sights are probably my biggest hit against this weapon, especially having to use iron sights. These ones obstruct a huge amount of your vision, making it extremely difficult to track targets. Basically, you're just looking through a small hole and you can't see around the sides of your irons. So this weapon is a little bit of a contradiction, both in the sense that it's supposed to be an American version of the SMLE, yet the damage model is significantly different, and on top of that, it's intended for extreme long ranges and only has iron sights that are difficult to use. If that's your cup of tea, then go for it, but I probably won't be using this weapon anymore. Alright, let's take a look at the Assault class's new weapon. We have the Rsc Factory and the Rsc Optical. I'm nicknaming this weapon the Little Bastard because that's kind of what it is. It's got enough ammo to effectively take down one target really quickly in close quarters, and not much beyond that. The reload speed isn't particularly enjoyable, so if you're getting charged by multiple opponents, this could be a very frustrating weapon to use. To compare this to a weapon that already exists in Battlefield 1, I would say this is a slower firing, heavier hitting version of the machine pistol. So if you want something that kills extremely fast like the machine pistol, then this is definitely a weapon to pick. It's got an extremely fast time to kill, so if you're accurate and fast on the reflexes, it's even got decent hip fire, it can take down that single target very quickly. The damage drop off is severe, and also the recoil is pretty severe as well. So as soon as you start pushing your targets a little bit further and further back, the time to kill goes way down, your ability to get a single kill goes way down. So this is pretty much relegated to a close quarter weapon. It does have that good hipfire accuracy as well though, so you can use it in that manner, but overall, I'm not a huge fan of the weapons that require you to reload in between kills in this game or switch to your sidearm to get a follow-up kill. It's just not my favorite type of weapon. It requires a lot of engaging and retreating or engaging and switching to a sidearm type gameplay, and ultimately I find that to be a bit ineffective in the long run. I'm not saying you can't do well with this weapon, you can, but it's not my favorite, and I think it's going to probably frustrate most players out there. Now, as long as we're still on the assault class, let's take a look at the new gadget. This is the Aaa Rocket Gun, a rocket gun intended to shoot down aircraft, and it's pretty effective at it, I gotta say. It does have a very limited angle of engagement, so if your enemy plane is attacking you from a very steep angle, it might be tricky to get a shot off on it, but it does decent damage. The problem, of course, is the problem with anti-air defense in Battlefield 1 in general, in that you can't really be the only guy fighting the airplanes. You'll do some damage on your own, but you're probably not going to be able to take down an attack plane in one single pass. You're going to need a little bit of backup from your teammates. You can certainly take down a damaged one in one pass, but if a couple of assault players are coordinated using these things, it can be a great deterrent. And I'm excited to see how the Battlefield 1 meta actually changes once the attack planes start dominating, how many assault players will switch to these and try and take them out of the sky. Moving on to the medic class, we have the Howell Automatic Factory and the Howell Automatic Sniper. This is a very interesting looking weapon. Its performance is not one that I necessarily am in love with, but if you like a weapon like, say, the Farquhar Hill, this is going to perform very similarly. One of the biggest selling points is that it has the capability of holding 21 rounds at a time, and if you don't like the iron sights from the Farquhar Hill, well, the sniper variant of this one comes with a magnified optic that you can use for a bit better precision. The odd thing about putting an optic on this rifle though is that it might trick you into thinking that this is a good rifle for long range engagements. It's not particularly. It drops down to 30 damage at range, which means you're going to need 4 shots to kill your target, and I kept kind of like raging almost at the screen, being like, why am I shooting people 4 times at extreme distances with this rifle? It does 42 damage in close range, so you're going to have a 3-shot kill, or if you're playing with teammates and they're able to damage your opponents a little bit, you can probably pull off a 2-shot kill in most scenarios, since it'll be doing 84 damage in 2 shots. This is sort of a weapon that I feel like you're really going to need a lot of team support to make it feel more effective. It'll start to look a lot better once your opponents have a slight amount of damage done to them. Otherwise, it's going to be a 3-shot in close quarters and a 4-shot at range with a slow rate of fire, and also more recoil than the Farquhar Hill. So that's another hit against this weapon. In my opinion, it is kind of like a worse variant of the Farquhar Hill, but if you want to deal with the recoil, then you can use a sniper optic on it. So there's pros and cons. I probably won't be using this one too much. Let's take a look at the support class's new weapon, the LMG 0818 lightweight, and then there's also the suppressive variant of this. At first I thought this was the IMG because it's got a lowercase l in front of the MG, which is a little bit throws you off, but the lowercase l stands for Luft in German, which means air, so it's the air-cooled variant of this machine gun. The low-weight variant of this has a 100-round belt-fed magazine, and it's actually got a really crazy reload animation that's a bit more dynamic and interesting. I was sort of watching it as I was playing, and the belt that holds the bullets doesn't actually separate as it goes through the machine gun, so it's just hanging out the other side of your machine gun, and when you have to reload, if you have enough ammunition left in your magazine, you actually have to crank that whole belt back through your machine gun, which adds to the reload time. But if you shoot off more of your ammo, you just pull the belt off through the other end of the machine gun and then pop the magazine off. It's kind of a cool dynamic reload like that, and I don't think that there's any other machine guns in Battlefield that operate the same way. As for actual performance, this weapon shoots at 600 rounds per minute, does 28 damage maximum, making it one of the higher damaging machine guns out there. It's got a bit of recoil to it, making it harder to use at longer ranges, but at close and medium range, this is a fairly competitive machine gun. Now, the BAR is one of my go-to weapons, which has an exact same time to kill damage output as this weapon. In fact, the BAR does slightly slightly less damage per shot than this weapon. So this is a really fun alternative for somebody looking to go for an aggressive close quarter machine gun. It doesn't have quite as much recoil as the MG14 Parabellum, so that's kind of nice if you want something in between or slightly less recoil than the Parabellum, but still puts out a decent amount of damage in close quarters. This is a great option. Now, the suppressive variant of this machine gun comes with an optic, 200 rounds, and it recovers from bullet spread a little bit slower than the lightweight version. I mean, 200 rounds is nothing to turn your nose up at. Personally, I prefer the iron sights over the optic on that, but that's just a personal preference. It's still a good machine gun, and really I would say just pick whichever one you like the optics for more. Bipoded, this weapon is hard to use at range. Not only does it leave insane machine gun bullet trails, but it's also just hard to control the recoil and be accurate. So not a huge fan of this weapon at extreme ranges. I think it's a great medium to close range weapon. Bipoded, you can extend that to medium long-ish range, but nothing too far. Let's take a look at the new universal sidearm. It seems like DICE has finally listened to the community feedback, which is stop making us tanker and pilot weapons that nobody ever uses and give us some universal sidearms. That's what this is, the Revolver Mark 6. This is basically an auto revolver that anybody can use. Now, the auto revolver is a medic exclusive revolver. It's one of my favorite revolvers in the game. It's a 2-shot kill with a good rate of fire. The Mark 6 has a slightly slower rate of fire, but also a slightly faster reload. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, and you can equip it on any class. It's a great revolver, probably going to be my go-to revolver in Battlefield 1. Fun to use, but its damage drop-off at range is severe. So definitely a close quarter only type weapon. And in real life, this is actually a variation of the auto revolver. So it looks almost identical. If you compare the two revolvers side by side, you can notice a few little detail changes here and there. But if you're wondering if this was just a copy and paste model, it's not quite. It's almost, but it's got some differences. Anyway, that wraps it up for the Apocalypse weapon reviews. I'll probably be doing a few more detailed reviews on some of these weapons, getting more into the stats and really the nuanced performance of the guns. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope that gives you a good idea of what weapons you might want to work for or unlock. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.